Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the 7 Heavenly Virtues. Today, we are talking all about faith, and the counterpart teaching to this is fear. This is going to follow the exact same thing that we talked about on the last call, which is if we're using the light analogy, God is over here, the light is over here, all the good news, the good things, the desires, the fulfillment, the joy, the peace, blah, 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 that's over here, and your shadow is over here. So it would be faith and fear, depending on which direction you're orienting towards or away from God. So that's the lay of the land for what we have going on today. I have a really fun story for you that happened today. Okay, this just happened this morning. A few days ago, I decided that I wanted to just make June super God focused. And I really wanted to focus on spending more time with God in June. So I have different disciplines that I'm doing this month. And I had my whole plan. And one of the things that was a part of this plan was to go for prayer walks every day. Just chat with God, carve out some time for that. However, recently I had to retire an old pair of sneakers, and so I threw my shoes away. So I haven't been able to go on my usual, more rigorous walks because I haven't had a pair of shoes. And so I'm not joking. As of this morning, it had been like about a day since I ordered a new pair of shoes. Keep in mind, I ordered these shoes. I did not even get an email notification that they had been shipped yet. I was expecting, okay, the shoes are going to be here probably sometime mid next week. So I'll be a few days behind on the prayer walks because I need the shoes in order to go do the things that I want to do. And I'll just make up for it in some other way. So I was kind of planning around the shoe situation. And I was sitting down on the couch this morning with my coffee, and I was doing some grace journaling, which is something we do in church. And so I'm chatting with God, all the things, and I hear a package get dropped off at my door. And I was like, no way. No way! They're not supposed to be here until next week. It's Saturday. It's supposed to take 5 business days. I did not pay for expedited shipping, but it was literally in the middle of a conversation with God, the shoes show up. And I'm like, I couldn't have paid for that. Even if I paid $60 to $100 for expedited shipping, I could not have made that package arrive that fast. It blew me away. And it was also really funny because it was kind of like God saying, yeah, go on the prayer walks. Yeah, I want you there too. And the even crazier thing about this, it's June 1st. When did I want to start this discipline? June 1st. I didn't want to start doing it on June 7th. I wanted it today, and I was kind of bummed. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that today. I don't get to come out of the gate, get started. So I was kind of bummed about not having the shoes. And so the fact that they showed up today was just divine, literally. Who else wants expedited shipping on everything? And it just made me realize, I'm like, that was fast. That was outrageously fast across the board. Now, this is the second thing. These happened back to back this morning. I'm doing my thing with God, chatting with God, and I prayed this prayer for the first time this morning. I asked God for an expansion of my territory. And what I meant by that is more visibility, more connections, more just more business being done, more just an expansion of my territory. And that was exactly how I phrased it. I go check my Instagram. This is within minutes. I go check my Instagram and I look in my DMs and someone is inviting me onto a podcast. This morning! That all happened today. God is always on expedited shipping. This is why when I was telling you all the other day, why aren't you connecting? Why aren't you connecting to the source of expedited shipping? Why aren't you connecting to the source of the goodness, of the divine timing, of the perfect order, of the everything that you want and more? Why are you not connecting to that? That's the point. Because the things, someone coming into my DMs and sending that message, I could not have forced that. God lined that up. I asked when they say ask and it is given, that means immediately. That doesn't mean you need to wait 10 years. Now, you might have a certain expectation around timing, which that is the barrier. In God's timing, there is no gap. If we're talking about just you ask, God's on it. You need it, God's on it. You want it, it's there. And of course, depending on how cooperative you are, it has the ability to come to you instantly. But of course, that depends on, are you pouting? Are you resisting? Are you locked in, staring at your shadow, right? It depends on all of those things. But when you look at it as God is immediate, God is now. You might need to prepare for certain things, especially if you're asking for really big desires. There might be some preparation, but it's not because it's not available. It's a preparation issue. So even your preparation is being done now. It's not happening later. It's right now. You're moving in the direction of it now. So it's safe for you to move as if it's done already. Anyway, this was not the subject matter for today, but we just had a brief intermission about timing and all that good stuff and everything being done now. But that is what it means by ask and it is given. It's ask, God already has it lined up. God transcends time. So the timing of the earth plane, the human understanding of time is not the same thing as the divine perspective of time, because you're tapping into a source that exists as the eternal now, the eternal present moment. Your mind might be able to contemplate different things right now. You can remember something from the past right now. You can imagine the future right now. Now is it. So when you realize your desires are occurring now, that will help you if you can really believe that and anchor into it. So we have prayers already fulfilled, that's why I love this. That's why I keep talking about it, because it's when you're connected to God, that's where all of the goods live. I keep telling you. I'm like, you want your stuff, you want your things, you want all the goods. Over here. Look over here. It's right there. So it's an orientation issue. This morning, I spent time orienting towards God. Immediate fruit. Harvest. Immediate. Hey, I'd like to be able to go on these prayer walks as of June 1st. Done. God doesn't need you to wait and suffer. Now, of course, if we're going to suffer, it may as well be meaningful, right? Hopefully, if we're going to go through trials, then it may as well be meaningful, but they are not required. We don't need to glamorize them. We don't need to give them more attention than they're worth. And I also want to remind you, this is the opening day of church, which I'm really excited about. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about faith. On the last call, I mentioned idolatry. And the principle underneath that is we are technically always worshiping something, meaning you are putting your trust, you are putting your faith, you are putting your well-being, you are putting your understanding in something. Faith operates in a very similar fashion, meaning you are always putting your faith in something. The question is just, what are you putting your faith in? If we were to look at it really clearly, really plainly, it would be, if fear is over here, what if it doesn't work out? What if I can't do it? What if it doesn't happen? Faith is, what if it does happen? What if it does work out? What if it is okay? What if good thing, good thing, good thing? It's just an orientation. So faith, you at every moment of every day that you are awake, you are putting your faith in something. Are you putting your faith in your history? Well, this happened in the past, and so it's likely to persist in the future. Is that where you're putting your faith? All the life experience that has taught you that this unfortunate thing is inevitable? Now, of course, we can't get around putting some of our faith in the material world because it's shown to us every single day. So if something is shown to you every single day, like the example, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, that happens every single day and it has never contradicted itself. You don't need to exercise your faith by putting your faith in something greater than yourself to get yourself to believe that the sun is going to rise in the east tomorrow. You don't need to do that because it's self-evident. But the question is, where are you putting your faith? Are you putting it in your action? Like the example that I gave on the last call, the email funnel. All my faith is in the email funnel. The strategy that I've chosen. Most of my clients in my work, because my work is faith-based, so usually the way people approach life is I'm going to do all of the action-based things. I'm going to do as many strategies as I need. I'm going to work myself to death. I'm going to do all of that stuff. And then when all of those fail me, then I'll turn to God or energetics or something that is a power beyond, something that is considered to be supernatural. So most of the time, people put their faith in everything but God first. I put my faith in my own understanding, in my own mind, my own experience, my own mental body. I put my faith in my action. I put my faith in other people's stories, in all the bad experiences that they've had. I've already concluded before I even attempt the thing, I've already come to the conclusion based on other people's stories that this isn't going to work out for me. It's like instead of believing that there is a supernatural God, a power that is beyond yourself, instead of being able to rest in that, put your faith in that, it's, I put my faith in the economy. I put my faith in the housing market. I don't know how people get anything done with that. If I had to put all my faith and all my belief in the economy, my cousin messaged me. She sent me a text the other day. She was like, oh, a recession. I'm like, you're still paying attention to that? They've been saying it's a recession since 2007. Why would I listen? When has the economy not been bad? As far as I can tell, they're committed to there being economic disaster. I was over it years ago. I'm not listening. Boring. Rich people always exist. Money is always circulating. Things are always flowing. Why would I put my faith in the economy? The economy is going to do what the economy is going to do. Who cares? There is something beyond that I'm more interested in. Recession, please. I mean, my understanding was that we've been in economic doom since 2020. I can't live that way. So there's a lot of people who are putting their faith in a lot of external things rather than the only thing that is steady. I don't know about you. I'm more interested in a reliable source rather than all of these other things that are going on because they're inconsistent. In the same way, you don't want to worship something that is inconsistent. You also don't necessarily want to put your faith in something that's inconsistent either. People don't even realize that science is faith-based. And all of this is completely built on ethics of humans. Oh boy. I'm not saying that science isn't helpful or that it's not a good tool, even though we're constantly making new discoveries. And usually once they make a new discovery, they're persecuted for a while before it becomes mainstream knowledge. Totally rock solid. You have faith in the institutions that are doing the studies, and you have faith in the people who are interpreting the statistics, and you have faith that all of the experiments are being done ethically, and you have faith that all of the peer-reviewed people haven't been bought. And then you have faith that the other studies that might contradict a finding are actually being published and aren't being snubbed out by different publications or agencies or universities or whatever. You're putting faith in that. You're putting your faith all over the place. You are always exercising. It's just a matter of what are you putting your faith in. When you put your faith in something that is unstable, it's the same thing as orienting away from God. So you might not feel total fear immediately, right? Because when I'm talking about, okay, faith is over here and fear is over here. Of course, there's many degrees of disconnection that can occur in between faith in God and full-blown fear. So at first, it might just look like I'm not necessarily putting my faith in God, I'm just orienting away from God. And depending on the stability of the thing that I've put my faith in, the more unstable it becomes or the more that things aren't going in the way that you expected. And then you become pessimistic, which is just faith in the wrong stuff, faith in the stuff that doesn't feel good. That's all pessimism is. It's mishandled faith. And then you do that long enough, then you're miserable. Then you do that long enough, then it builds momentum, then you're scared. Then you become scared of the world, of more bad things happening. So this is a momentum game. And as I said in the connection call, if you would simply orient in the direction of God, you could receive replenishment and reassurance and relief and clarity and all good things. But it's a practice. Having faith is something that is a discipline in where you put it. It's easy to just put your faith in what your past has communicated to you, in the experiences that you've had throughout your life. That's an easy place to put faith. You've lived it, you've seen it firsthand, been there, done that. But if you want something different, your faith has got to change. Where you're putting it has got to change. Now, I want to give you a little background about this first. I do not have any religious trauma, and I didn't grow up religious. I had exposure to a lot of different religions. Out of my own curiosity, started reading the Bible. I do not like the New Testament for a whole host of reasons. I was extremely disappointed by the New Testament, but there are so many good stories in it. I like Bible study for the Bible study itself, not for religious application or purposes. So I have become surprisingly, let's say, well-read with the Bible over the past few months, purely out of my own curiosity. And also, I was curious. I wonder if by doing Bible study, it would lead me to become a Christian. No, it's actually had the opposite effect, where reading the Bible has led me to realize that I am definitely not a Christian. Not because I don't like Jesus, or not because he didn't have some good teachings or philosophy. I do not like the disciples. Don't like them. I just wanted to set that up because we are going to be talking about some Bible stories. But I want to reassure people that that I'm not Christian. I read the Bible for fun. And because it has some really solid stuff about God. I'm an Old Testament girly. Okay? That's what I'm declaring myself. I'm an Old Testament girly. That's my preference. The Old Testament is badass. It is crazy. It is so fucked up. It is wild. I'm into that. It is dramatic, it's the number one sold book in the world. And after reading it, I'm like, I get it. It is not boring. It is crazy. Anyway, faith. This is something that comes up an outrageous number of times in the Bible. And this is one of those things that is continually illustrated, specifically in the Old Testament, or in the New Testament. In a lot of the Jesus stories, that is the thing. When you're facing circumstances that are not favorable, what do? Most people these days are relying exclusively on themselves. I just need to buckle down and take more action, or I need to conjure more personal power, or I need to do something or get help from somewhere else, or there's a lot of pressure on the self in order to make things happen when circumstances are not favorable. I don't know about you, but that is exhausting. That is so tiring. That's like today with the shoes. Imagine if instead of me just relaxing and saying, okay, they'll get here when they get here, just relaxing about it, I was like, no, I'm going to go hunt down the truck on foot. I can't do that. There's a power that is beyond that. That's my preference, is to tap into that. When I'm down and out, when I'm having a really bad OCD flare up and I feel paralyzed, I am not dependable in that moment. I can't put my faith in myself when my mind is in a state where I can't discern fact from fiction because I'm so paralyzed by the OCD. Maybe if other people are having success with that, I'm not here to knock it. If something is working for you, please go do your thing. I just know that I haven't found success with that. It's actually tired me out. And instead, the source of my power, the source of my clarity, the source of my strength, my understanding, whatever it is that I'm needing to be supplied with in that moment, has to come from something that's greater than me so I can relax. The answers, the inspiration, the whatever, I can't be the source of all that because I'll get wiped out. In these stories that are in the Bible, and this is also true of many of the classic hero's journey stories, the odds are never good. When there's a great battle going on, It's never, well, we have 5,000 men and they have 5,000 men, and, the odds are good. The odds, it's kind of a equal match, and, there's a 2% chance that we'll be able to override the other team. That story will never make it on the big screen. Well, the numbers say. Why is it that the great battles end up being, they have 10,000 men and we have 300? It looks impossible. And that is why you are recruiting a supernatural God, a divine power that is greater than your own understanding, in order to support you in executing on that plan. Stories of great faith and triumph are never about the odds were good. We have the numbers, the market is good. That is not going on. It's in Lord of the Rings when Rohan goes to Helm's Deep. I love teaching with Lord of the Rings, by the way. It's one of my favorite things. When they're in Helm's Deep, they have 300 men that are old or too young or inexperienced with shitty armor. That's the setup in Lord of the Rings. And there's 10,000 orc. That's the scene. That's where God is able to fill in the gaps. There's a lot of biblical references inside of Lord of the Rings, which is one of the reasons why I really like teaching with it. Because I was like, at 300 versus 10,000, I've read this somewhere. Because it's in the Bible. It's a biblical setup. That was the whole thing, is we have 300 men. It looks impossible. But when you have faith in God, the divine power that is greater than yourself, that is beyond your understanding, God is the one who's able to make shit happen. God has your shoes on expedited shipping. You know what I'm saying? God has everything set up. God is listening to all of the conversations and knows how to move all of the people and inspire all of the things and all of the events and all of the circumstances. God, don't you want that? Don't you want that? Don't you want to put your faith in that and see how it shows up for you? I don't know. I do. That's why a consistent orientation towards God, a rich prayer life, when they say pray without ceasing, they're saying orient towards God without ceasing. Communicate with God without ceasing. Keep your eyes fixed on God without ceasing. Prayer is an active way to keep the lines of communication open so that you're not breaking the connection and you don't start going on rants about complaining or entertaining things that you really don't want, or start entertaining the circumstances don't look so good. Well, the market says, like my cousin the other day, drives me nuts. Well, recession this, recession that. Shh! I'm more interested in this divine intervention that is about to flood my life. Thank you very much. You can keep your muggle stuff. Yeah, I'm not subscribing to that 444 when you sent that message. My time. That's where all the fun stuff is. Do you know how bored I would be if it's like, well, the markets and the this and science says and, the doctor said and the housing market isn't very good. It's constant naysaying. I don't know how anyone functions. Just this constant dread and droning on in misery. Ugh. I say we can do better. Look, you think God can't handle a little inflation or a recession? Really? Come on. Like, it's so played out. We've already done that. Yeah. Move on. Let's anchor into something else. Because that's where all the exciting stuff is. That's where the expedited shipping comes from. That's, I'm gonna start using expedited shipping as a euphemism for just like the gifts that God has. God has the surprise expedited shipping. So, the story about the woman who bled for 12 years. In biblical times, when the Pharisees were running everything with the Israelites, there was so much religious law, it was suffocating. And there was this woman who, like, her period didn't stop for 12 years. She had been bleeding. And the thing is, if you're bleeding and you touch someone, this is exclusive to religious law at the time, and you touch someone, they're considered unclean until that evening. And they have to do all this ceremonial stuff in order to purify themselves. It's a major inconvenience because you're super restricted and limited. This woman gets it in her mind that if I just touch Jesus's garment, if I just touch it, that I'll be healed, that the bleeding will stop and this will be completely taken care of. She chases him down in the street because he's in this busy, crowded town. You know, people are like coming to see him speak. And they're constantly like dogpiling Jesus, okay? So she runs into the crowd, touches his garment, and the bleeding stops. She got exactly what she wanted. Total recovery. And when he asked her, why my garment? Like, why of all the things? She was like, because I couldn't touch you. You couldn't touch me because of this whole religious law that we have going on. I figured I found a loophole where if I just touched your garment, then we would be good. We wouldn't be breaking any religious law. You wouldn't be impure. It wouldn't inconvenience you at all, but I would still get a healing. And he told her, it's not my garment that healed you. It's your faith that has made you whole. And he, over and over and over and over, is praising people's faith. It is your faith in God, even though he's saying your faith in me. But that's what it is. Faith in God is where the goods come from. Now, I read something very interesting that I don't see people talk about. This is in Matthew. Jesus was born in Nazareth, and so he ended up having to go back home to Nazareth. This is really key because it's his family of origin. And one of the things that Matthew says at the very tail end of chapter 13 is he did not perform many great works there because of their unbelief. That's only half of the equation. Because even though they're saying that basically Jesus went back to his hometown and wasn't able to perform all of the miracles that he normally would because the town didn't believe in him. That's not quite right. Because one of the ways that Jesus was able to recruit people and call in and attract his disciples was by performing miracles that they did not believe in. So it's inaccurate to say that it was because of the other people's belief or lack thereof. That's half. Much of the time, Jesus was able to override through the dominance of his faith, because whoever is connected to God more, Abraham Hicks says, one person who is connected to Source is more powerful than a million who aren't. That's the same thing as if you're connected to God, you're more powerful than a million who aren't. So this situation that Jesus was in, I was so glad that I found that snippet. And I read that this morning because it just illustrates that even Jesus was not able to override the energetics, because when he went back to his family of origin, his energetic dominance was compromised. Another reason why I'm not Christian is because I don't believe that Jesus was perfect. He was a damn good practitioner. He was super connected to God. He was a master of many things. Perfect? No. Whatever. That's another one of the many reasons why I'm not Christian. The point is that in that scenario, it's the combination of both. It's the intersection of my faith and yours. So this is another one of the reasons why I believe Mary Magdalene had 7 or 12 exorcisms, something like that. Because she would get a healing, but then she would drift and she would get repossessed. So she was dealing with a lot of stuff too. It's not a one and done thing. It's a moment by moment experience that you're having, in where you're connected and where you're putting your faith, in the degree of connection that you're holding. And so you can imagine if Jesus went back to his hometown, he's surrounded by all his old friends that were teasing him throughout his childhood, all the memories that probably don't feel so good. All of in the same way that if you were to go home, and the same way that your family would push your buttons, that is the same thing that led to him not being able to perform miracles the way he normally would. So, but they don't want to talk about that because Jesus is supposed to be perfect. I'm like, it's right there in the text. Matthew said it. It wasn't just because of the other people's belief. God as expedited shipping is so much better than what I grew up with, which was you might get a gift if you were impossibly good. God has as a strict, mean parent. Very hard to connect with that idea of God. This is one of the number one reasons why church came to be. Let me tell you, I was so scared to launch it as church because I was totally convinced that everyone was going to get turned off. I was just nervous. It's a really edgy label to give a program because I could get hate from a million different angles. The biggest thing, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if someone is going to put their faith in God, or someone is going to ask you to put your faith in God, or to trust God, or in some cases, trust the universe, or trust source, this higher power, this divine intelligence, you have to actually believe that it loves you, and that it cares about you, and that it's good. If you do not believe those things, if you believe it's cruel, punishing, that it's going to harm you, or that the love is conditional, how are you going to trust it? How? It's constantly going to be, I want to let go of the reins, but I think you're going to hurt me. I want to let go of the reins. I don't think you're going to have my back. Mommy criticized me. Dad neglected me. All your family stuff will come up, like we talked about during the last call, that will prevent you from actually relaxing into that relationship. And the biggest disservice that religion has done was portray a punishing God. Even though it's super juicy to read about in the Old Testament. But this is something where you can't have a punishing God and then ask people to relax and trust and receive the love of God at the same time. That's not fair. You can't say, well, if you don't do da-da-da, then you're going to hell. You're going to burn for eternity. There's going to be a gnashing of teeth. There's going to be pure darkness. You cannot do that and then say, okay, but be relaxed and loving. And God is good, but you might go to hell. Who's not going to be turned off by that? People are going to run from God if that is the setup. For me, my relationship with God was always, I think you're dangling a carrot out in front of my face. I think you're taunting me. I don't take you seriously. I don't think you care about me. I think you're fucking with me half the time. Like, I was so resentful at God. So resentful at God. How are you going to relax? If I think that God is teasing me and taunting me, how could I possibly let go of the reins? How could I allow? And it took years, actually, for me to really rework this relationship. And it took quite a while for me to get to the place where it's like, when I feel that way, I go to God instead of run. Because I can't run and simultaneously receive the love of God and the solutions that I desire. Like I told you before, when I am focused on God, even though I was scared, even though I didn't know how I was going to get a particular solution that I needed, even though I was frustrated by the timing, I was like, I'm still bringing this to you. I'm angry and confused, still bringing this to you, and the solution came in. A lot of what we do in my church, it's not a literal church, but my membership, is develop actual intimacy so that you can actually feel the love of God and ditch this fear stuff. Like being afraid of the very thing that could be your greatest source of love and power and goodness. And straight up magic. Expedited shipping is magic. You know what I mean? That's how it feels. So the strict parent narrative is something, oh man, I even got this question today. Let's just go into it. So someone was asking me on Instagram, would this be good for me if I have religious trauma? The funniest thing about this, when I launched this in December, I thought all the ex-evangelicals that were in my audience were going to be totally turned off, that they weren't going to like it. They were going to be like, nope, it's called church. Get that away from me. Turn their nose up to it and run. So many ex-evangelicals and people with religious trauma ended up signing up. I was like, I didn't expect this to be a rehab facility for religious trauma, but if that is a part of the plan, if you will, of how I'm supporting people in the world, I'm here for it. Because again, of course, I have my idea of God and my relationship with God, but what matters more is, do you feel freaking safe? Do you? Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel like you can go to God and be like, you know what, I can fully turn this over to you and I'm no longer digging my nails into it? When people in manifestation talk about you have to detach, you have to relax, you have to take your claws out of it. Well, how can you do that if you think if someone is or something is screwing with you? So all of this stuff, a lot of the foundational things that you desire to do, whether it's related to anything spiritual, manifestation, whatever, money, is often built on the premise of, do you believe that you are divinely loved, supported, and cared for or not? If this relationship isn't good, that's how you're going to navigate the world. Completely. When we first did grace journaling, so this was back in January, the January session of grace journaling, people were bawling because it opened up. I even started crying during the session. It was so intense for everyone because it was unearthing all of that. Do you think you're going to get punished? Do you think that that something bad is going to happen, that you're being taunted? Like literally looking at the beliefs and ideas that you have about this relationship will highlight whether or not you're going to feel safe going to it. If people are being threatened with hell, they're not going to go to God. That's why so many people have turned away. And they're like, that is a cruel, scary thing that is over there, and I'm not into it. Me either. I'm not about that. Are you kidding me? I am not threatening people with hell or punishment. Nope. Won't do it. Not interested. Bringing this all back to faith. Your willingness, that's another virtue that we're going to be talking about. Your willingness to put faith in God or a higher power, whatever verbiage you choose, that is loving and giving and nurturing and genuinely cares about you and adores you, depends on whether or not you fundamentally buy into that. If it's laced with punishment, then you're not going to put your faith in it. It's going to be too scary. If you're not reworking your relationship and really getting to the heart, because if you're afraid, then you've oriented away from God. Something is up. You're buying into thought forms that are not of God. I don't care what Christians say. If God is scaring you, that's not God. Okay, let's talk about the fish. We're going to test your faith right now. We're going to do an experiment. Jesus was out wandering around in the desert with his disciples, as he did. And he ended up starting to teach, as he normally did. And he started drawing a crowd. And there were thousands of people that came. The disciples come up to Jesus towards the end of the evening, and they're like, hey, first of all, great sermon. We love it. Fantastic. We're definitely going to go spread the word. But I do have to let you know that we are running out of food. So there's no food. This place is completely desolate. We were able to scrounge up 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. But in all honesty, I think that we should send these people away so that they can go get food, because this, let's be real. And Jesus was like, no, they can stay. I've got this. We can totally do this. So he breaks the bread in half. He's praying. He knows that there is more than enough. He knows that there is overflow. There is more than enough for everyone. He prays. He does his thing. He gives the baskets to the disciples and says, okay, there you go. There's all the food. And there were baskets and baskets filled with bread and fish. And he ended up feeding 5,000 people. The question for you is, do you believe that that did happen or is possible? Do you believe that that did happen, like in real life? That is a legit story? Do you believe that's a legit story? Do you believe that that miracle actually occurred? Or that it could? Even if you don't believe Jesus did it, do you believe it could? And your answer to that will tell you everything you need to know about your level of faith. Because if you're having a response to that where you're saying, well, I mean, I think it's not literal. Like, I think there was another factor at play, a more practical factor at play, then your faith is in practicality, not God. If you believe all of it's a lie, that it was it was a tale about demonstrating faith or just illustrate another miracle that Jesus was able to do just for the sake of story. Little faith. No faith. Or it's not going to get you very far. If you believe that that is possible, that yes, I could pray and receive more than enough to go from 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread feeding 5,000. I believe that that's possible. I believe that God can multiply what I have. That's big faith. Haven't you ever had that experience where you looked in your bank account and you're like, oh, there's more than I expected? When I did the mental math, I thought there was only going to be this much, but then I looked and there was way more. Don't you think that that's God multiplying things for you? When you have more left over or more than enough, or it turned out better? What if you want to scream yes, but you still clench a little? That's just an indicator of how big your faith is. That's it. So it's like it's up there, but it's not on or off. It's just degrees. Now the thing is, a lot of people try to create like a gotcha situation when they're like, oh really? So if you just have faith, you could like grow a new arm? Like that's something like an atheist would say. Just like this, oh really? I very much want to believe it's possible. So the thing is, having a certain amount of belief in consensus reality is helpful, right? If you're completely like unhooked from consensus reality, well then now you're like so disconnected to the point where it like presents as schizophrenia, where it's like you're so in your own world, you're not even functional. That's not what we're talking about here. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not talking about doing something or having faith that is going to be destructive in your life. It's just like, can you allow more involvement from this divine source that we're talking about, that I'm calling God? What's the difference between fish and bread and an arm? Look, I am the type of person to tell you, I believe anything is possible, even if it's crazy, but I've got big belief and I've got big faith. So I'm never going to tell people that they can't do something because I don't think that's my place. There are things that you could do that if they defy your belief system could hurt you. Right? So if you say, oh, really? Well, if I believe I can fly, I can just jump off this building. Okay, well, you don't actually believe that. So there's a huge disconnect between your belief system and the action that you're going to take. And if those two things are not in total congruency, yeah, you're going to fall off the damn building. But people also said the same thing to the Wright brothers. Well, you don't, can you imagine there's no airplanes and then someone comes up to you and says, I will absolutely make a contraption that can fly humans. Okay. Like, that's somewhat of the equivalent. The belief of the Wright brothers and the divine inspiration in order to make that a reality were congruent. Because the belief was big. And then everything else was supplied. So of course, it's like, I personally don't think there's a difference between building the airplane for the first time, fish, bread, or some body parts. A client of mine just sent me a video about a woman who had a full hysterectomy and then got pregnant after going to church. Like one of the pastors prayed for her, and then they brought the doctor that did the hysterectomy, and then this patient came to him pregnant, converted him. So who am I? Why would I diminish someone's power. That's between you and God. But the degree to which you believe, this is the vision that I believe you have put on my heart. These are the desires that you've put on my heart. And if you've planted it there, I trust that you are supplying me with everything that I need in order to actualize it. And I'm going to move in faith. And I'm going to move knowing that you have my back. That can absolutely be met and is met with all of the cooperation that is necessary in order for it to come to fruition. In the same way, this morning, I prayed, God, expand my territory, and a few minutes later, hey, will you come on my podcast? Because God knows, literally, God knows who to move when. And all I need to do is ask. Ask and it is given. Knock and the door will open. Pray without ceasing. Don't stop knocking. Just keep going. That's what the Wright brothers did. We're going to do this. We're going to fly. We're going to make it happen. We're going to be the first ones to do it. No, you can't. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. How do you think innovations come to be? At first, you look crazy. And then there's planes flying around all over the place. Your results are in direct proportion to your faith. Your examples make everything make sense for me. Good. How do I develop faith? Well, like I said, so this is one of the reasons why I said at the beginning of the call, you're already putting your faith in something. So you don't actually need to develop faith. You need to develop your orientation and possibly repair your relationship with God. I mean, I think it would be more of a useful exercise to identify, like, where am I already putting my faith? The economy, the numbers, the markets. I have a lot of voices for different human behavior. That's the most recent one. What should we call him? Well, actually, that's not how this works. Norman? Yeah, he's the voice of practicality. The voice of practicality will just... God. What a buzzkill. Do not invite him to the party. Norman, that's enough out of you. Zip it. So, okay, back to developing faith. You've got faith in something. What is it? Your history, other people's experiences, the markets, the numbers, the odds. Is it that? Is it something else? Is it that everything is going to fall apart? If you're down in the dumps, that's probably where you're at. Like, well, I believe that this definitely isn't going to work out. That's a belief. That's faith. And so it's orientation. It's opening up communication with God. I'm just going to say, this is what we do in church. I just want everyone to be really clear about that. That's what I facilitate, is taking this time to write and think and talk and listen with God. Taking this block of time to feel and connect and resonate with God. Because the more you open the lines of communication, the more God will talk back. That's how you develop your faith, through communication and feeling. That's really why I was like, I have to give people just time and space to connect to God themselves, not through the teachings of someone else, but just through experience, through dialogue, through movement, through whatever. There's a lot of ways to do it. That's just how I like facilitating it. But the more that you do that, the more you'll feel the truth and consistency of God. So this is the important part. As you start developing your relationship with God more, or just like opening up to, there's a loving, infinite source of consciousness that is aware of me and cares for me. And as I put my attention on that and I start opening up the channels of communication with that, the more I do that, the more momentum it gains, the more traction it has. Right now, you are constantly being communicated with, but it's your receptivity that is low. Your eye isn't trained for it. Like every time I go to the grocery store and there's this happened last night. There was 2 of something that I wanted. It was the snack that I wanted to get while I was there. There were 2 bags, last bags available. That's God to me. We saved this just for you because you're favored. Thank you. Yes. That's God's love. But my eye is trained for that. Most people aren't out there looking for God's love every day. They're not let me scan the horizon for all of the little ways that God is showing up for me today. Your life would change if you did that. If you started looking for those things. But it's a language like we talked about during the last call. Your training orientation. If you don't believe that there is a loving God, if you believe it's punishing or harsh, well, now you have a fractured relationship with God. So putting your faith in that is going to feel damn near impossible. So I wouldn't even ask you, just put your faith in God if you think you're going to get punished or you're going to get tossed into hell. If that is the God that you currently perceive in your mind, don't put your faith in that. I'm not going to advise that you do that. That's scary. I couldn't do that if I were you. This is the part of the equation that everyone is missing around manifestation or trusting God or faith, is you can't put trust in something that is scary, or that you think is going to do something bad to you, or is holding a metaphorical gun to your head. That's not a trustworthy God. That is not a God that is worthy of your trust. So don't give it your trust. And this is why we need to get back to, do you believe there's a loving source of consciousness? If that first premise is muddy at all, faith in God is out of the equation for now, until that relationship is repaired. You see? And most of the time, people are working out their mommy and daddy issues with this. It's, I was betrayed, I was neglected, I was deceived, I was this, that, and the other thing that you start projecting onto God. You're not going to have faith. If God is shitty, you're not going to be able to trust it. If you believe that you have to be pure all the time and perfect and clean, then you're not going to go to God frequently, because it's not a real relationship then. So you don't need to develop faith. You need to examine, where are you putting your faith, and how can you shift that to something that is loving and divine and consistent, if you want. You don't even need to if you don't want to. There are some people who live their whole lives just with personal power. Like I said, I can't do that. But there are some people who do. There are some people who live lives as atheists, experiencing a godless reality, or what they feel is a godless reality, that rely on science and statistics. You can live that way. There is no pressure here at all. This is all optional. This is just dependent on what kind of life do you want to live. I want a magic, holy shit, that is God-sized blessings kind of life. I want a big life. So that means my faith also needs to be in something bigger than the numbers, the economy. I'm not going to get magic from that. Like, I cannot squeeze practicality enough and get magic. So this is all dependent on what do you even want? This is all for you. Literally, this is your life. This is your quality of experience. This is your relationship with God. This is your personal practice. My beliefs don't even matter here. This is about what degree of intimacy do you want to have with this? Because if you want big things, or if you feel like the gap, okay, let me illustrate it this way. You are here. What you want is here. Everything in between is faith. Getting from here to here takes this amount of faith. Getting from here to here takes this amount of faith. So depending on where you want to land will determine the amount of faith that is required in order for you to get there and the speed in which you get there. I feel like I need to visualize my higher self as God so I can relate to it better, put a face to it, something of this reality. I can't see your last name. Are you in church already? Okay. The January Grace Journaling. That's it. That's a lot of that gets worked out. That session, if you have not done it, I am so freaking serious. That cracks everything open. The identity of God will be revealed. Because some of you are imagining a scary man in the clouds. Okay, you're doing it tonight. Perfect. That should clear that up. Because we address all of that. You get a really good picture of what it is that you currently believe, and then you start shifting into how do you want it to be. If God is scary man in the clouds, again, I couldn't trust that, and I wouldn't ask you to. Your results, this is what I said right before I started answering questions. Your results are in direct proportion to your level of faith. So just like I said, you want big, mountain moving type of results, then you need mountain moving level faith. Jesus said you need a mustard seed of faith. But okay, let me put it this way. A little bit of faith in God will do a lot. Okay, but again, in the loving, infinite source of divine intelligence and consciousness that I'm referring to. That's why I had to clear up my definition of God during the last call. Putting a mustard seed level of faith in that will do a lot. Putting a mustard seed size faith in an angry man in the clouds, in a punishing God, I don't know what that's going to do. I've never done that. Putting faith in a God that's going to send me to hell if I'm not perfect, I don't know anything about that because I don't do that. If I would want to box that God in real life. So I'm not trusting that God. Because again, he isn't worthy of my trust if that's how he's going to be. So yes, a very small amount, the slightest bit of connection will work wonders. In the same way, what I described earlier it was a perfect illustration for this call about what happened with the shoes and the territory prayer. Because all I did, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go into June spending more time with God deliberately. That's it. And then I actually did it. And then upon doing that, all of this movement started to happen in like the first hour of my day. So it really does not take much, but in terms of the speed, how fast something will occur, that is where you do need the mountain-sized faith, the mountain-moving level of faith. You can't want a big life, but doubt all the time. No. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know when. We can't entertain. No, there's no time. If you're wanting to go fast, we can't be doing that. Like, you get on the horse, like, take that to God. If you're doubting or fearing, you've got to go to God with that. The good one, not the scary one. So this is where the relationship with God is, oh my God, it's so important. It's so important if you want divine support and if you want divine help and if you want divine guidance. You've got to lean in. You've got to communicate more. You've got to call God first. God isn't going to blow up your phone. You've got to dial. Hello, hello. You've got to do that. You have to sit down and in my work, it's grace journaling. You've got to sit down and do the grace journaling. You've got to do the moving prayer. You have to wake up and open up. The prayer that I said this morning was, God, give me abundant energy for all of the work that I have to do today, for all these calls. Put the right words in my mouth today. I'm trying to just pray without ceasing, communicate with God without ceasing, because I can get 1,000 times more things done when I recruit God than trying to muscle through it. I don't need to muscle through it. Why? I don't need that because I have an infinite source of energy. What suggestions do you have to identify where I place faith? It's going to be different for everything. It just depends on the subject matter. For example, let's just take something rudimentary here. Let's say you have a cough or some type of head cold, something like that. Just a minor thing, a minor bug. And you are going to recover from the bug. Why? Is it modern medicine, your body's immune system, or God? And there's no wrong answer, but it's just an example of like, why do you think you're going to heal? The answer to that question will reveal what it is. A financial outcome. You want a particular financial outcome. Well, where's the money coming from? Is it coming from your work, from your employer? Well, then you have faith in your employer. If you're in sales and you're like, well, I'm going to sell, okay, well, then you have faith in customers, or you have faith in your ability to speak well and sell well. That's where your faith is in that moment. Because it's like, of course, it's irrational to do this with everything because we have more important things to do, right? Like, we're not going to go say, well, I'm not putting my faith in God instead of like my selling skills. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessary for us to do that. But usually when we have complicated circumstances, or we're wanting to enrich our life in some way or feel more satisfaction, or maybe things are going really well and you want to deepen your appreciation of it, well, then God needs to enter the chat. So if you why do you think an outcome is going to turn out the way it is? Answer that question, and that'll tell you where you're putting your faith. I realized that part of my resistance to developing practice is that I don't wish to identify with the smug, arrogant, judgmental people who wield God like a club. Me either. But I don't need to choose their God. I have faith. God won't make me an asshole. That's religion, not God. A lot of modern day Christians have become the very Pharisees that Jesus criticized, like obsessed with inconsequential stuff, like obsessed with only certain parts of purity. Whatever. I could go on and on about that. Am I accurate when I write my hold up to manifesting money is because I've believed it will come from someone or something and not simply from God? I'm putting my faith in something else. So my belief personally is that money comes from God, not people. Yes, there's an exchange between me and another person, but who's inspiring the person? God? Or who is inspiring the transaction? Or where are the people coming from? The people are coming from God. Where are the people who want to buy from me coming from? God. God is the mover. So that's my belief. But again, your belief is personal preference. God is steady. The reason why I believe money comes from God is because God is steady and I want my money to be steady. If I believe it's determined by the economy, here we go again. Well, the numbers, business is down. Ugh, can't deal with that. Get out of here, Norman. Go away. That is part of the equation. It's like there's other things that can complicate our relationship with money, but like if it's all based on, well, how many people are viewing my Instagram story? If all of your money is tied up in how many people are viewing your Instagram story, it's like, well, good luck with that. That sucks. Because that's not consistent. It's not steady. Or like how many sales calls I made. People put faith in volume. Some people just put all of their financial faith in the more output, the more I receive. Personally, that sounds tiring too, but you get the point. God has the goods. Always. God has expedited shipping. God has all the lovely relationships, all the inspiration, the right next step, the right words, the clarity about the situation, the peace of mind and heart. God has that. All the stuff. God has all the stuff. God has the stuff. God has the stuff. Okay, so I sing that song to yourself and think of me. God has all your stuff. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Church is open. It's going to be open for the rest of the month. The earlier that you get in, if you sign up today, you get the whole month of June for free because you're paid up through July. So you get more time the earlier you're signed up. And, here's the other thing. Grace journaling, the next live grace journaling session that we're doing is on Tuesday. So if you want to come to the live call, if you want to take advantage of getting in to get all the June stuff and come to all of the live stuff we have in June, that is the next call, which is going to be on Tuesday. So we have our next 7 Heavenly Virtues call on Monday, and then we have grace journaling on Tuesday. The Great Prayer Event. Okay, this is something that I'm opening up. I'm going to start doing events inside of church. You can think about it, how some people do like the monthly challenges? This is kind of like that. But I'm going to have, a particular structure for it, and it's just going to be a month of heavy, heavy, heavy communication with God, meaning a lot of communication with God, a lot of connection with God, making that a priority, because I'm telling you, the more that you talk to God, the more God talks back. So we're going to be doing that. I've been feeling into it. I think we're going to make August that event. I want everyone to get settled because this month is enrollment month. And then I want everyone to get settled in July. And then it's probably going to be August that we do the event. So I'm very, very excited. We have enrollment this month, so you have until the 30th. Then it won't be open again until December. So if you want to get in on that, this is the time to do it. My voice has had about enough. But I would love to see you inside church and help you work out all the bugs and actually relaxing into a loving God. Enough with this angry man in the clouds. Can we get him out of here? Like, we deserve better. And that is what I'm here for, to help you repair all of that. Much love. You're welcome. God's got the goods. God's got the goods. Yes, he does. All right, my friends, thank you so much. I love you all. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.